Welcome to the Thinc Conversation series, where we explore issues shaping South Africa. I'm Mathebula from the Thinc Foundation. I'm in conversations with South Africans. I talk to influencers. This is more than a conversation. It's a thought-provoking engagement for a nation ready for the next 30 to 50 years takeoff. Today we're continuing with the subject of community resilience for economic empowerment. There are myths to be demystified. I'm again joined by Titus Mafolo. As I told you last time, he's a former political advisor to President Mbeki. He's an author, he's a historian, he's a father also. And Dr. Zakes Motene, who is a medical doctor by training, and they both work for Kalimo, a cooperative of farmers which is mainly black. Gentlemen, welcome back again.
Thank you very much.
When we spoke last time, we ended up with the issue of the African Bank. I just want to give you a minute to say, how is that a model for economic empowerment, the African Bank issue that you were telling us?
Well, I think the issue of the African Bank, how it started, the process and so on, is something that I think should be studied even by students, by everybody, by communities, by black people, because it's very inspiring. The NAFCOC takes a decision, but then there were others who were skeptical about the viability of starting a black bank. You know, this thing about black people, will they ever run a bank? Will they ever run such an important institution? But Sam Motsuenyane was very focused and very determined that this thing is going to happen. He actually traveled the country at a time when blacks were not allowed to sleep in hotels. He would lodge in, his colleagues, the other business people's homes, and then urge them to bring in money to start this bank. Now, the idea was that the minimum to be contributed was 100 rands. So he went throughout the country, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, at the time Northern Transvaal, Eastern Transvaal, KwaZulu-Natal, Natal at the time, Free State and so on, everywhere. And urged people to please bring 100 rands as a minimum for the creation of this bank. In fact, in Natal, his deputy, Mr. Gumede, even used the radio to urge people that, look, we want to open a black bank. And there is a very inspiring story about an old person who said, I'm going to contribute my 100 rand. I know I may not benefit, but I'm sure that my children and my grandchildren will benefit out of this. He gave an analogy of planting a tree, that when you plant a tree, you may not actually enjoy its shade, but your children and your grandchildren will enjoy the shade. So, and after many obstacles which they had to overcome, ultimately the African Bank was launched. But that is very inspiring because, along the way, the apartheid government was actually giving them problems, was putting one obstacle after another. For instance, they had to, out of the homeland leaders, at least 6 had to agree to the bank. So they then had to go around and engage the homeland leaders. They went to Chief Buthelezi agreed. They went to Patudi agreed. They went to Ntsangwisi agreed. They went to Matanzima agreed. They went to Mupedi agreed. They went to Mangope disagreed. Both Mangope and Sebe disagreed, but at least they managed to get 6 homeland leaders to agree as per the demand from government. So that obstacle was actually overcome. Then in a meeting in Mamelodi in your township, the NAFCOC meeting, then they said, now we are ready to launch the African Bank. And of course, then they said, okay, we've overcome the homeland thing, we've overcome some of the conditions that were put before us. Where's the money? So the next meeting, which was held in Welkom, they gathered there, counted the money. Now, the late Mr. Losolam from Harangue was the treasurer of NAFCOC. So they counted the money. They needed 1 million to open the bank. And there, they actually had the 1 million for the opening of the bank. Of course, part of the money also came from some of the homeland leaders. Then they gave Losolan, while the meeting was on, gave Losolan the money because they were banking at the Barclays Bank in Pretoria. So they gave him the money, he put it in the boot of his car and drove from Welkom and to the bank, to the Barclays Bank in Pretoria. And not a cent was lost. 1 million there. And then that is how the bank was started. Now,
so what is important is that not a cent was lost. And
not a cent was lost. But also this determination that we actually want to open a bank. Let's contribute as black people. Is a timeless lesson for all black people, that things are not impossible to actually achieve. And the NAFCOC example is a very inspiring example.
So this was not an empowerment of asking people to give you money. It was an empowerment of saying, let's do it ourselves.
Ourselves, self-reliance.
None but ourselves.
Now,
none but ourselves.
Ourselves, yeah.
Yes.
Now, let me come back to today. There's a national dialogue going on. It's a reality. President Ramaphosa is going to give a keynote address next month on the 15th. And people will be there. And they will be talking about this dialogue. And before we go in, I just want to know, with this wealth of history and experience in the cooperatives, what do you make of this national dialogue, gentlemen? Just quick, short comments.
Well, national dialogue is very important. It's very important because let's take ourselves as black people. In the townships, things that used to happen in the past during apartheid, during the difficult times of apartheid, our fathers used to gather together, contribute money, buy kit for us to play football, and Saturday, Sunday they come there and then they urge us on and so on. They used to help us with our studies and so on. That is not happening anymore. In fact, what defines township life is people gathering around alcohol. And older people actually blame young people for being engaged in nyaope and so on. But these young people actually take cue from older people because they think that to get drunk is cool. But because they can't afford alcohol, they go for nyaope, which is cheaper. But it's because every week in, week out, we black people, we gather around alcohol. We have all the reasons to do that, either at weddings, either at the funerals. I think even those who were committed churchgoers, they find a way of gathering with some
after church,
some alcohol.
Can I just
and that is very
funny point?
Yeah.
We are talking about the national dialogue, which will be a national gathering to talk. So isn't that is happening in township gatherings? Maybe we just need to give them a purpose, because what I know is that when people gather, first people have to gather and they talk about issues affecting them. It's just that if you give them a purpose of something as focused as that of building a community bank or a community purse, that will be something that when they gather and engage in alcohol, there's something progressive that they are doing. I wondered if you will allow me to comment on that issue of...
But just that, Dr.
No, before that one...
But just that, Dr. Motene, these gatherings in the black townships is around alcohol. The main thing is alcohol. It's not about any other subject, and that is a problem that I'm having.
But gentlemen, let me ask you something. If you were to be asked to run a commission at the National Dialogue on economic empowerment, especially community reliance, what would the agenda of that commission be?
I'll rather Dr. Motene maybe.
No history, please. What would be the agenda of that commission?
Community development.
Yeah, what about it?
Community development, practical community development. We have already had many examples in this country, some of which we mentioned, historical perspectives, NAFCOC and all of that. We have to put all those plans into action. So put an action team for every community with timelines. We had plans for agri-park development. We had plans for, when you say people gather, that gathering, I mean, people gather at church every Sunday, they take out money at the church. So how do you build the community? You know, we must never think a bank is something so sophisticated. Stokvels is what every community had. People worked outside every month.
So the agenda would be people must collect money.
Building a community fund, every community. Bring its professionals to, because there's no community that will not have an accountant, a teacher, a this. I grew up in that system in Royal Bafokeng. Every village, we have 29 villages. Every village had a Bafokeng women's club. The women would collect R1 from each other every month because we were pariahs in Buputaswan. And that took us to school. I went to university with that community fund. Okay. So we have to practicalize it in every community. That's what I would put in that commission, practical things.
We will be back with more on the Thinc Conversations.